bug fly.
Sorry.
That's okay. This is my fuzzy bug fly. It's a fly that I came up with quite a few years ago. I've been fishing it for quite a while. I don't have, it wasn't completely my original idea. Craig Rindell came up with a fly called the hairy fodder, which is using the same 60-degree jig hook and the lead eyes and the silicone legs. His fly, however, instead of using the fuzzy material, used crosscut rabbit strip palmered around the hook. And he also had a rattle on it. So it was a very effective fly, but it was also heavy as heck once it got absorbed, once a lot of water absorbed into the rabbit strip material. It was really difficult to cast. So I saw Enrico Puglisi streamer brush, which is the material that I'll be using. This is what it, I don't know if you can see it. This is the streamer brush, and you can get this at fly shops. And this is I'll take out a brush here. This is what a brush looks like. And this is really nice material for a fly. It has fantastic action in the water. I've used this fly for smallmouth a lot. It works well every place all year round. It works great in rivers and streams. Fish both drifting it downstream and swinging it. It also works fish like a crawfish across the bottom. And I've had great success for it in lakes too. With fishing in Raleigh's Bay in Lake Michigan, this fly works really, really well. And I've caught a bunch of fish actually, like by just letting it sit in the water. I was doing something else. It's just dangling in the water, and fish will just come up and smack it. So it's a very nice performing fly. And I'll get started and show you how I tie it. So I'm using a 60-degree jig hook. And this is I'll show you what it is. This is a VMC 761 BM. And this is actually a size 1. I tie this on size 4 hooks, size 2 hooks, and size 1 hooks. Depending on what the brand hook you're getting, the size varies quite a bit. I mean, here's another brand hook, and this is a number 2, but it's much, much smaller, as you can see, than the number 1 here. I like Gamakatsu hooks. I've used those most. That's the hook I've used most for this fly. The 291 60-degree hooks, and those are fantastic hooks. They stay sharp. The downside to those is they're expensive. 25 Gamakatsus, if you get it at Barlow's Tackle, which is a good place to be buying these hooks, because they know most fly shops don't carry hooks like this. On Barlow's, the Gamakatsus are $10 for 25 hooks. Gamakatsu sells them for like $17 for 25 hooks. The VMCs are $5.94 for 50 hooks. I think they're about as good as the Gamakatsus too. So that's what I'm using now. So the first thing I'm doing is tying the lead eyes onto the fly. I use both size small and size large for these flies, depending upon how heavy I want them to be and how much I want them to sink. So the first thing you do is the lead eyes are tied right at the bend of the hook. So I'm putting thread right at the end of the hook. I'm going away from the eye a little bit and putting a ball on it. Where and that's makes it a little bit easier to keep the hook in one place. There. I'm going to figure 8 the hook on, putting this right in front of that little ball that I put in. You can do this whatever method that you're comfortable doing. I like cinching it down like this. And just to make it stay in place, I gotta get some pliers here. Okay. I can't get my super glue open. Well, I'll do it without super glue. I'll just tie a little bit more. Just get this nice and snug. Once I have the eyes on tight, I'm just going to cover the whole hook shank with thread. Now, I didn't discuss colors, so I'll do that now. I'm tying this in root beer, which is the color I showed you. I tie them in this rust color. There's olive. I've also tied them in white. Here's a white fly right here with a red head on it. The best colors for me have been the red olive and the root beer. And I don't know if you can see it. There's these little legs on it. Can you guys see the legs? Nod if you can see the legs.
Yeah, they're in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can see the legs. Okay. So I'm going to start. I'm going to take. This doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to take about five legs. Cut them away from the base of the base of the rubber that it's on. Fold it in half. And I'm going to tie it in, start it in right behind the eyes, and just wrap the thread around the legs. And this, again, this is pretty much a tube jig. And I'm with a size 1 hook like this, a larger hook, I'm not worrying about the length of the legs too much. I'm not cutting them. I can trim them at the end. So I put in 5 legs, double them, put them in, and now I'm going to get some crystal flash. Take a couple strands of crystal flash. I don't like using a lot, especially a lot of the legs that you're getting if you're buying the silicone legs at a fly shop already have sparkle in them like these do. So you don't need to put a lot of flash on it. In fact, you don't even have to put any flash on it. So I don't put the flash in. I put the thread back behind the eyes. Double the crystal flash over, and then I make sure the crystal flash is on the side of the fly so the crystal flash is going to show, and just wrap it down to the bend of the hook. And trim the crystal flash to about the same length of the legs, maybe a bit longer. And then I'm going to put the thread back behind the eyes and put another 5 or so legs on. Going to double them over like I did on the first time. And just wrap them back down the hook shank. And then put a few wraps in. You can tighten it up a little bit. It makes the legs flare. And at this point, we're ready to put on the streamer brush. Now this is half of the streamer brush right here. And typically, if I'm using a size 2 or a 1 hook, these are about the same as the Gamakatsu number 2 hooks. It takes half of the streamer brush. So you do need to make sure you're using some wire cutters or a pair of old scissors to cut these, because this is a wire brush. You don't want to mess up your good scissors cutting this stuff. I keep a set of side cutters in my tying kit for this. At the end of the streamer brush, the wire sticks out. So then what you want to do is put the thread, the point on the hook where it's covering the wire, the same length as at the end of the wire, and just cinch the wire down tightly all the way to the bend of the hook, and then advance the thread back to behind the eyes. And if you want, you can just put a half hitch in it so it doesn't, so you don't lose the thread and it doesn't change position. Now, the best way to do this is to wrap it. You can use the rotary vise to do this. I typically do this by hand. And what you want to do, let me back this up a little bit so you can see this. You want to pull the fibers back. Can you see that? Pulling the fibers back. So that way they'll all be going the same direction. And then slowly wrap the brush around the fly. And on each wrap, you need to be careful and pull the fibers back, because you don't want to capture them, because if they get captured underneath the wire, then you're not going to have the movement and the action that you get from the fly. So you just repeat the process slowly and keep on pulling it back, because you want those rubber legs to be, or whatever material they are. They used to be rubber. Now I think they're a different material. And just keep on wrapping. And you just have to be cognizant of how far you are to make sure you've got enough material. And I'm fluffing it out, as you can see, and just moving all the fibers and the legs back. And just keep on going, and you're just going to wrap this all the way to right behind the eyes. And if there's excess length, I just keep on wrapping it over. It just makes the head a little bit thicker, and you just got to make sure you're pulling the fibers out, teasing them out, so they're going to be moving when the fly's in the water. And then the last part with the wire, I'm pinching it down right behind the eyes with my fingernail. I don't know if you can see that. It looks like that. And the wire's not, I'm making sure the wire's not sticking out. Then I'm just going to cinch it down. And depending on where the wire is, you might have to pinch the wire down a little bit more to make sure it's not sticking out. So it's not going to be getting caught to weeds or anything like that. So I'm wrapping it around 7 or 8 times, getting it nice and tight. I'll fluff it out to make sure I don't have to undo it, which I don't. Then at this point, all I need is my whip finisher, and I'm going to whip finish it. It's 7 times. Now I am going to get my pliers, because I want to show you how I like to finish this. Open up my glue. I'll be right back. Okay, here's my glue. Sorry about that. Now, after I've done the whip finish, I still like to put a little bit of glue on there. So I'm just going to put, just using super glue with a brush, brushing on just a little bit. Pull the fibers back. Then I can just do one more, then I can just cut it. And that gets it. And since I didn't do the super glue earlier, I'm going to put some on now so it'll, to make sure it'll stay on there solid. And that's the fly. It's pretty simple. And what's nice about it is that you can tie a bunch of them in a short period of time. The downside to that is the streamer brush material isn't cheap. It's like depending upon where you get it, you got to be careful because some fly shops charge a lot of money for this stuff. It's like $9 for a bag of these, and I think that you can get about 6 flies in it. So it's not about 12 flies out of this. There's usually 6 of the streamer brushes in a bag. So, but you can tie a lot of flies in a short period of time, and I'm pretty lazy, and that's the reason why I like doing it. But I want to show you, and I'll take the fly out so you can see it better. You can see it's nice and fluffy. That's why I call it the fuzzy bug, and it's got great action in the water, whether it's moving or whether it's not. So again, I use a variety of different methods fishing with this fly. I do I swing it a lot, where I'll cast it quarter downstream or parallel to bank, depending upon the speed of the water, and just let it. And especially if I'm waiting, I'll let it bump down the river bottom until it straightens out. And fish will hit it at any time during the swing, especially at the end of the swing. It works really well, and twitching it and jerking the rod tip when it's swinging, it works really well. You can also fish it right along the bank in slower water, especially if you tie it with a heavier eyes and crawl it along the bottom like a crayfish fly. I don't know what the fish think that it is, but it's doing the same thing that a tube jig does. Now, what I want to tie another one using different materials, so you can just see how this works. So you can be creative on your own and tie the flies just to meet the way you like, or just to meet the different conditions. I tied this one on small eyes, and I'm going to tie the next one on larger eyes, and I'm going to tie it in a different color. So I'm going to get white thread. So when I'm going to use this, I'm going to use some, I'm not exactly sure what material this is. This is just a thick chenille. It might be a chocolate. I don't know what it's called. Dwayne chocolate, I think. I think this is a material with his name on it. I just had some of this left. I'm going to use this and some different color legs. These are aqua color legs, and I'm going to put some polar chenille at the head of the fly just to give it some action. So let's do that. Repeat the process. Make the little ball. And we get some yellow eyes. These are mediums again. Now I am going to use super glue at the right time. On the top, on the bottom, straighten up a little bit, get a few more wraps. They're on there good now. And repeat the process. I'm going to wrap the thread down the shank of the hook, to the bend. Then back to behind the eyes. Here's some feathers in there. I wonder how that happened. Double it. Cinch it behind the eyes. And for these, I'll use this purple material. I don't know if you can see it. Here's a purple crystal flash. Put the thread behind the eye of the hook. Double it over. Cinch it down. Divide it and put half on either side of the material. Cinch it down. Back behind the eyes. Some more. Now, one thing that you can do with this, if you want, is, and I've done this, especially in the darker colors. You can use like an olive color for the legs, and you can put like two or three chartreuse, or yellow, or orange, or red legs in, just to give it a little bit more color and contrast, and that works particularly well if you're tying it in a dark color, but you just want to make it a little bit brighter in case the water is kind of stained. So you can be creative with this and tie it however you want. So I've got the legs on now. Now I'm going to tie on. I'm going to use here's the material. Like any chenille, you need to pull the ends off so you can see the little ends here, and that's where you're going to tie it in. Got it in here nice and secure. Put the thread behind the eyes, and it's different material, but it's the same process. You just have to pull it back, pull the material back. Just keep on pulling it back. Now with this, since I'm going to be putting in another material, I'm leaving a little bit of a gap behind the eyes. I don't know if you can see that. So it gives me enough room to put in the UV polar chenille. It doesn't take much of this. Just going to tie it in. Make sure it's in tight. And like anything else, just keep on wrapping. Wrapping the fibers back. Here's once. And here's twice. I'll put in another half. Fold the material back. And cinch it down. And I'm going to pull all the fibers back and cinch it down. So these give the these add some flash, and the chenille is gonna move pretty well in the water. So now I can whip finish it. And repeat the process with a little bit of super glue. And again, it's important when you're doing this to pull the material, any stray material back, so the glue doesn't get on that, and that just gives it a little bit more secure. So there's a white one here. This will, you can see it a little bit better if I'm covering it from the glare of my fluorescent light above my workbench.
Yeah, that's much better, Alan.
Yeah.
Covering it, yeah, you can see it a lot better.
Yeah. So this is going to have a really good minnow profile. And what's nice about using the rubber legs like this is when the fish, and especially with this material, which is pretty dense, the fish can bite down on it, and they're not going to be necessarily feeling anything hard when they first start nipping at it, which is one of the reasons I think these work. And that's the same reason why tube jigs work, because there's a decent amount of a rubber on these things. And that's one of the reasons why they work, because it's not, the fish seem to take it pretty good. Now, the way that I fish this, I often use I use furled leaders almost exclusively, and I've been getting them from Feathercraft. And Feathercraft makes both floating furled leaders made for bass fishing, and they also make fluorocarbon furled leaders which sink. And I use both the floating ones and the bass ones, and they also have some bullet ones which are designed for heavy flies, and that they work really well, especially the sinking ones. And I don't know if you can see this. They come with a loop. It's a welded or glued loop, and they come with a little teeny tippet ring. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. So they're most of them are 5 feet long. So if you put on between 3 or 4 feet of fluorocarbon tippet, the fluorocarbon tippet helps to get the fly down. And if you're using the fluorocarbon leaders themselves, it gets the fly down even more. So it makes it much easier to get the fly down, and it also makes it much easier to fish these in the lighter sizes. I don't tie these. I tie these again with size small lead eyes and size medium lead eyes, and most of the time they're size small, because the ones that are made with the streamer brush, these things sink really well because these don't trap, once they get wet, they don't trap any air in them. They sink really well. This probably isn't going to sink quite as well, which is why I tied it in the size medium. But the secret to this is getting it down. So if you're using the sinking leader and a fluorocarbon tippet, you can be using the swinging method in a river like the Menominee or the Wolf River or the Fox River, where the current's really strong, and the flies with the sinking leader and the fluorocarbon tippet, the fly really gets down well, and that makes a difference between the fly being close to the surface in heavy current versus being down a foot or two, especially at the end of the drift. So that's the way I fish these things, and again, it's worked really well every place that I fished them for smallmouth. And if you tied, my guess, Bart, if I was going to 4, if you tied this in a tan color with tan legs, or with the rust color ones, it would probably work. Probably work a redfish, because that's what this material was really designed for initially, is for saltwater fishing.
Undoubtedly.
So that's the fuzzy bug.
Yeah, Alan, can you take it off the vise? And it is the light, doesn't do it justice, unfortunately. But that's a beautiful fly. It really is.
Yeah, here's this one.
Yeah, that's the head of it, right?
Here's the tail.
Mm-hmm.
Here, let's so there's the white, the minnow pattern, the white one. And here's the,
certainly mimic a bait fish type thing too, wouldn't it?
yeah, and I think when it's in the dark colors, I don't know what it is. Because they'll hit it like they're hitting minnows in fast water, but then you can also drag one on the bottom of the on the bottom of the river, especially right by shore, and it works really well. The dark ones work really well there too.
Mm-hmm. Like a crayfish, probably, huh?
Yeah, but when they're hitting the swing, I think they think it's a minnow. But bass are, who knows what bass think it is? It doesn't make any difference at all. You just have to.
Hey, John, can you hear me? Or Alan?
How about now?
Oh, okay. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
And here's the olive color, and it really doesn't make any difference, except from a confidence standpoint, if you buy the streamer brush without legs. I just like the legs because it definitely has more increased action, and it just, for me, this fly is a confidence fly. I just use it. I use it every place, and I actually am doing some. I've also tied this in a little bit, this exact same thing in heavier weights, and I've used it with spinning rods too. So that's a fuzzy bug. I'll be putting a bunch of these in a box, and we'll be having an event. We'll be having raffles. We'll raffle off some of these.
Excellent.
Any other guys got questions?
Alan, you didn't talk about the advantages of a jig hook on a fly particularly when you're bouncing bottom or fishing on the swing.
Yeah, well,
The point of the hook is up. So
yeah, the hook is always up, and because of the angle, it's going to hit something, and it can ride up and over obstructions that anything that hits. I mean, it snags like any other fly, but these hooks work real well. I would just advise going to Barlow's Tackle is a good place to be buying these jig hooks, because most fly shops don't carry anything other than these are what? These aren't Mustad. These are something you get at a fly shop, but they're really small. I mean, this is like a size smaller than the size 2 Gamakatsus. And because most fly shops don't carry the hooks in large enough sizes, so you pretty much have to get them someplace on the internet, and most fishing tackle stores don't carry those hooks either. So that's the only downside. You have to order the hooks from someplace else. But one thing I've learned is that if you go to Barlow's or some of these other places that cater to people who are building jigs and lures and stuff like that, is that things like the rubber legs are much cheaper than the same things are from the fly fishing companies. The colors are slightly different. Not as many of the silicone legs have flashy stuff in them, but you can overcome that by putting a little bit more crystal flash on the back of the flies if you decide to use them that way. But it's a lot. Those materials are a lot cheaper. So if you're ordering from Barlow's, they don't have the streamer brush, but order the hooks and order some legs, and you'll have enough legs to last you a few years, because it just lasts a lot longer. Whereas these Paxmo fly shop like this, they go pretty quickly. So that's my fuzzy bug.
thanks, Alan. One other comment about a profile like that: those rubber legs are about half of the length of the fly, and they're really prone to straightening out. If you've tied deceivers, deer hair does pretty good on clousers and not fouling. But a lot of other stuff will tend to foul depending on how your fly turns over.
Right.
You get a long drift back and you realize your fly looks like crap.
Yeah.
Whereas these straighten out and fish the way they're supposed to on almost every cast.
That does not, the fouling does not happen with this hook. With this fly, that's another good thing about using the rubber legs. But the thing is, the fish can also nip at it, and they feel something, and then they'll come back and whack it after they do it, which is exactly the way things work when you're fishing with a tube jig. I mean, they'll nip at it, or any type of a rubber lure. They'll nip at it, and they can feel something, so they'll come, and it feels somewhat real to them. They'll come back and try to engulf it. So that's a fuzzy bug.
And if you are fishing these in a good sized still water environment, you can put a decent sized float at the tip of your leader and use the leader float as an indicator and allow your fly to get down, say, mid depth along a weed line, down 6-8 feet.
Yeah.
And fish it slowly that way. And that can be very effective as well. Craig Riandow created the Harry Fodder, is very fond of what he calls indicator fishing. When the fish aren't chasing, he almost immediately goes to some kind of a float system, and you obviously move it. Either you let the wind drift or the waves move it, or you move it a foot at a time, but you give it a good long pause in between, and most of the takes occur while it's just hanging there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in that I on fishing in Door County, one year I watched Craig just killing it when no one else was catching any fish in really tough fishing conditions. So the next year I tied some of his flies, a fly that he uses for that, fishing under an indicator, and like it works really well. And the good thing about tie this with this exact fly with a small size is going to sink pretty well, and it's got great action when it's just moving up and down in the water, because all this material just is pulsing and stuff. It works really well. But one great thing about fishing like that is you're not making so many casts, so you can basically, it's a nice way. You cast it and you just let it sit there instead of casting back and forth with an 8-weight. I mean, if you're doing 1/4 of your fishing in an 8-hour day, using that technique, your arm feels much better at the end of the day than if you would have spent that other 2 hours, casting your 8-weight like crazy.
Yeah, I think when you're fishing slow like that, if the fish aren't chasing and the bites aren't aggressive, you're more attuned to what's going on, and you're more likely to get that subtle pickup or realize that it's there and hook a few more fish.
Yeah.
Excellent pattern, Alan.
Yeah. So what else can we talk about? Anybody making Midwest fishing plans yet?
I know Midwest Waters, Mike Allen and Austin, Grab Your Fly. They're both seeing bookings already for March and April. The prime early season gets booked up pretty fast. We're going to have we haven't decided on an exact date yet, but we're going to aim for an outdoor event in possibly late May or early June that will substitute for our blowout. It'll allow us to have people arrive and spend the day socializing with a better chance at being distanced, and offer a whole bunch of stuff that you can come and not only enjoy a meal and a few hours visiting and talking fishing, but the opportunity to get in on some really nice deals, silent auction or otherwise, for gear, flies, that kind of stuff. So we missed out on it last year. We're hoping to make it happen this year.
That's right, John. Thank you for mentioning that.
Bart, have you made progress on or asking about dates for a reservation? You had your eye on a.
Yeah, we did have an eye on a spot on the DuPage River at the that we're looking at, and it has electrical hookup, and it seats up to about 50 people. There was a little concern if that would be large enough, but I think that I think that it should be big enough. So we'll be making an announcement on that hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, 50 is definitely enough. I mean, even if it rains, people can get out of the rain, and if the day is nice, not everybody's going to be under the shelter at the same time. I followed up on Kane County and DuPage County, and they've got a couple of spots that are nice, but you're out further out than we've usually run our big fundraisers. So, and what you described, I don't know what forest preserve it is down there, but the one on the DuPage sounds really nice.
Yeah, it's right. It's called Riverview Park, and it's right off 95th Street. It's not, it's not real accessible, but it's not, horribly difficult to find either. But it's pretty centrally located, so I think it'd be a good location. People could also members could fish if they wanted to. Bring their fishing gear and have that opportunity, as the river is right there as well. So I think it'll lend itself to a good location for this. So,
Bart, do you have anything else you want to promote while you got a few people listening for more Zoom stuff that's scheduled?
As a matter of fact, Rich McElliott will be presenting a tie here in the next couple of weeks. We'll be making an announcement on that very soon. We're discussing the possibility of maybe offering a in-house tying opportunity. versus a Zoom as well, or allowing for both possibly if if the masking mandates are lifted here at the end of the month. So this would be in mid-March to the end of March sometime.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Alan, were you using your phone for the filming on this?
No, Bart's recording.
we are recording this.
No, I know, but your camera, is that your computer or is that your phone?
It's an iPad.
It's an iPad. Okay. Because the picture is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, lighting can be challenging, but the picture is great.
Yeah, my computer's kind of big for putting on my it's even better, but I don't like getting all the flying detritus in the keyboard of the computer. So I don't use a computer.
You don't want flash and super glue on your keyboard.
Right. Right. I like to avoid that. The iPad's out of the way. So I'm in the process of nailing down a guide for a couple days fishing in Sturgeon Bay
Cool.
in
What time
the
of
end of
year?
May.
Oh,
The end of
nice.
May, which there should still be at least
That's
partially.
spring.
Yeah,
That
so
may
it's still,
be pre-spawn, yeah.
yeah. Well, that's the hope. And Sturgeon Bay's got more protected water than Door County does.
Alan, if you ever have to tie flies around your computer and you're worried about your keyboard, just use some plastic wrap
Yeah.
and just wrap the keyboard in plastic wrap. You can type on it just fine, and it keeps everything out.
Yeah. Yeah. I could do that. My Apple computers are pretty pricey. I don't like doing anything that would cause an issue with it. I want it to last. I don't want to have to buy another one.
Yeah,
Until
I hear you.
Until I absolutely have to. That's what's good about. That's what I like about having an iPad. I can do a lot of stuff with it, and it's
Sure.
it's less cumbersome and less likely to get knocked off a coffee table or something like that. I know my limitations.
The iPhone seems to work pretty good.
Yep. So, well,
Yeah, I guess without further ado, I'll go ahead and unless there's anything further, I'll go ahead and stop the recording
okay,
and then we can go ahead and keep talking here.
sure.